Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Ladies T, tonight, welcome back, Editor-in-Chief of the Post-Millennial and Human Events, Libby Emmons, as well as writer for Daily Caller, Brianna Lyman. Libby and Brianna, welcome back. You girls are always on top of everything going on, and that's why we had to talk about, there's a lot to discuss today. The first thing as it relates to the horrors and atrocities we've seen in Israel that I think I've been trying to figure out is sort of, Libby, how did we end up in a place like we are right now where you even have to question? There are people out there who are like, I'm not sure whether or not I should support Israel in this situation. I don't know. There's an argument to be made for Hamas here. How on earth could we find ourselves with people in this country who have access to unlimited amounts of information, who can clearly look at the videos of people paragliding in, mowing down people with machine guns, beheading babies, burning them apparently alive, kidnapping children, murdering their parents in front of them, murdering a Holocaust survivor, and say, I don't know which side of things I should be on? It seems unbelievable to me. I met some woman the other day who said, thank you for speaking out against what we've seen happen to Israel. I work in the music industry, and there are a lot of people at the top of that industry who have yet to say anything. How did we get here, Libby? What is this?
Yeah, I have found this shocking as well. And I think you'll find that the answers are different depending on who you ask. I do think that there is still a lot of anti-Semitism in the world. It's been with the Jewish people since forever, basically. And I do think that there is a substantial amount of that is pervasive. But I also think that a lot of what's going on is that you have the progressive left that is so used to rooting for the underdog. And perhaps they don't know their Middle Eastern or Israeli history, and they don't really understand what's going on here. Hamas was founded, in the late 80s. They started suicide bombings in Israel in 93. They have taught their children in Gaza and the West Bank that being a jihadi is the best thing you can be. They literally put on children's programming on television featuring young kids saying that when they grow up, they want to kill Jews and they want to die for, Allah. That's what's been going on. So you have, I think, a lot of people that are used to saying, oh, the Palestinians, they don't have anything to do with this. They're different than Hamas. And of course, they elected Hamas to lead the government in 2006 after Israel withdrew from Gaza. The reasons for that are multifold. A lot of it has to do with Hamas having then provided a lot of humanitarian aid, education. It's a violent government. There's been a lot of that going on. So I think that much of what you see is a total misunderstanding of what's happened in the Middle East, what's happened to Israel. And I think that combined with your basic anti-Semitism is what's at the root of this.
I mean, it's just been disgusting to see and really jarring, I think, because I think it's so obvious. Brianna, you look at kind of what I just described, these horrific situations, things that honestly, I think most of us can't actually try to think about and rationalize because it'll actually make you sick to think that there are people who would do those sorts of things today. It's just barbarism, plain and simple. And then, you talk about the progressive left, as they like to call themselves. They like to champion causes like Black Lives Matter, like Antifa. As Libby said, they like to root for the underdogs or whatever it is. And you had the BLM chapter in Chicago at least come out and very clearly support the side of these terrorists. They posted very proudly on their social media a paraglider, a picture of one with a Palestinian flag, and said, I stand with Palestine. Now, they also simultaneously, this BLM chapter in Chicago also posted a picture of celebrities who had been vocal with their support for Israel. And at least they said something. It's nice to see that some people still have a moral compass. And they basically said, well, what do all these people have in common, Brianna, insinuating that because these were all white individuals, that if you are Black and you support the Black Lives Matter movement, maybe you should be against them. And I guess their goal was maybe you should support the terrorism and the beheading of children in Israel. That was kind of mind-blowing to me too, that they were just so out front with it. But then you also had Antifa, who was trying to block or suggest the blockage of shipments coming off of cargo ships from Israel, I guess trying to disrupt Israel's supply chain and inflict even more torture on these poor people in Israel. So it's interesting to me, Brianna, to see that not only do you have all of these woke college students who have literally no idea what they're talking about and are championing the terrorism of Israelis, but then you also have BLM and Antifa apparently coming out and saying, yeah, we also support Hamas and this crazy terrorism. So maybe we shouldn't be surprised, but I can't believe they've been so out front with it.
Well, I think Libby hit it on the head. I think that there is an amount of anti-Semitism in the United States that we're just not going to get rid of when we have issues like this. And, you know, a lot of people that I've spoken to who are, for instance, pro-Palestine, I think at first I thought they're conflating pro-Palestine with Hamas. But then you see what the Black Lives Matter did when they put the paragliders on there, and you have to sit back for a minute and say, that's not conflating. They are supporting the terrorists that flew in. You're not conflating Palestine. And like, you know, Libby mentioned, these are people who voted into the Palestinian Authority, Hamas. And I think it's important to note, because your father-in-law did this, he stopped funding to Palestine until they could guarantee that they would no longer engage in the pay to slay program that they have, which, mind you, right now, they're going to be giving stipends, monthly stipends, to families of the Hamas jihadists who have now murdered Israeli terrorists. And of course, back in 2021, Biden then re-upped this program. So he brought it back. So I think that if you have a government like the United States that essentially condones this by letting our tax dollars go to Palestine when they harbor terrorists and when they have terrorists working in their government, you send the message to Americans that it's not really as bad as we think. And, you know, I was thinking of this the other day. I used to work for a boss who's Jewish, and he'd always say to me what I thought jokingly was, Brianna, if the Holocaust happened again, would you hide my family and I? And I'd kind of laugh and I'd be like, of course, that is a ridiculous question. It's 2021. Why are you asking me this? And I see what happens. I see what Black Lives Matter posts, and I see that people can condone what happens. And I realize he was never joking. Jews don't joke when they say that, because they really do have to worry in today's day and age, will I need a place to hide?
Yeah. And I mean, listen, I think that a lot of people, at least I think a lot of these college students who have been out there carrying around Palestinian flags, again, who have no idea what they're talking about, are of the assumption that somehow the Palestinians are just trying to get some land back and they're fighting for their right to be there. That is not what's going on. Very clearly, this is about murdering Jewish people. And I think once people sit back and they understand that and what it's all about, and you have to look really deep and you have to actually dig around in some of the teachings of these people there, these Hamas terrorists, and the next generation, these young kids who have been indoctrinated with the notion that they are supposed to kill Jews, that they are supposed to kill Jewish people, death to Israel, death to America. That's what a lot of these terrorists are chanting. It really changes the way you see things. And I think once people start to understand that, and that is at the basis of what is going on here, I don't think you have any two ways about it. The fact that you're right, it is like, oh, yeah, we would hide somebody if the Holocaust was happening now. I don't know. Would you? Do you support Black Lives Matter? Do you think it's a joke that they put the paraglider on there? The paragliders who flew into this music fest, who then murdered hundreds of people and kidnapped all of these people who are now being held as hostages. It is sick stuff that's going on right now. But leave it to none other than, of course, the ladies over at The View to get even grosser on this front, as though it's not disgusting enough, as though we're not sick enough by all that's gone on. Joy Behar couldn't help herself. She tried to imply somehow that Donald Trump might be partly to blame for the Hamas massacres in Israel. Let me just give you a little snippet of what Joy said. She said, I would like to know who's behind this, because it's very interesting that now I think Putin is sitting back and saying, wow, well, they're sending their money to Israel, so maybe they won't send them to Ukraine. They won't send the money to Ukraine now. I'm very suspicious of this. And what did Donald Trump tell Putin when he was in Helsinki? Are you kidding, Joy? And these are questions that need to be answered in this country. Really? Donald Trump, probably the most pro-Israel American president we have ever had. Donald Trump, who, by the way, had historic peace agreements, the Abraham Accords signed in the Middle East, Libby. She wants people to think that somehow Donald Trump was to blame for this. Let me remind Joy about some other things that Donald Trump did. He withdrew the United States of America from the Iran nuclear agreement. We stopped giving money to a country that hated us. He also called up China and said, hey, China, guess what? Xi Jinping, if you buy oil from Iran, we are no longer going to be able to import any of your goods. So guess who stopped buying oil from Iran? The Chinese. It put Iran on their heels so much that they would have never even thought about supporting something like this because they didn't have the funding. $6 billion unfrozen by the Biden administration. Meanwhile, crickets on that from Joy Behar. Libby, what in the hell is this woman talking about? Trump derangement syndrome, obviously, but really Donald Trump?
Yeah, so I think that the women of The View have proven themselves time and time again to have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Not only do they not know their history, but they don't even know current events. The very notion that Donald Trump is to blame for the attack in Israel by Hamas is insane. Hamas has been planning this attack for 2 years. They basically started planning when Joe Biden got into office, right? I mean, that's really what started here. We saw a report out from the Wall Street Journal that said Iran had been helping them plan it, had greenlit the first attack. You know, that's clearly not Donald Trump's fault. And then, of course, you have Joe Biden unfreezing $6 billion to give to Iran that they, you know, and they say, oh, they'll spend the $6 billion in specific ways. But we all know when you get extra money, maybe you go splurge on something else. And Iran is probably splurging on terrorism. Iran was behind training Hamas in the first place when Israel kicked out a bunch of terrorists and sent them to Lebanon, and Hezbollah and Iran went nuts and trained them to be even bigger jihadis than before. Donald Trump, no. Donald Trump is the man who cut illegal immigration at the border by something like 80%. He kept terrorists out of this country. He dealt with the Middle East with bilateral agreements that kept everybody pretty happy, except for the Palestinians, who, as we can see, are primarily electing crazy terrorists to do their bidding. When Hamas attacked Israel on October 7th, they knew full well that the response from Israel would be swift and fierce and perhaps even way bigger than Hamas's attack in the first place. Hamas knew this. They do these kind of attacks. They create more jihadis. They create more death on their own side as well in order to fuel international sympathy for them. Meanwhile, if they're given the chance again, they're just going to go kill more Israelis. And now we have, of course, reps in the United States, Bowman and AOC, saying that we should take in refugees from Gaza. Why? So that we can import more terrorists? This is the worst idea ever. And Donald Trump, of course, yesterday went out and said that if he's elected, there would be no immigrants from Gaza, no refugees at all. And as far as Donald Trump's standing with Israel, he said outright that he said, the quote is, I stand with Bibi, I stand with Israel. So I think we know where Trump's allegiances lay, and they're with America's long-term allies.
It's just so frustrating, Brianna, because, you know, this is how, I mean, talk about misinformation, which the left loves to talk about, right? As though folks who are conservative, like we're out there spreading a bunch of crazy. This is crazy. And unfortunately, there are people, God bless them, who watch The View. And I hate it for them because they're getting dumber watching this show. They're certainly not learning anything. And then you have people like this who put this notion out there that somehow Donald Trump, of all people, was associated with this. But it's scary because some people will buy it. Some people out there who watch this show will be like, wow, I heard that it was Donald Trump's fault that all of this happened. Like, how do we fight back at this point? Because it is really hard when you have dumb people out there saying dumb stuff like this and just honestly making our population worse off and more against one another than is even necessary. It's really crazy. Like, what do we do about Joy Behar?
Well, first, people should watch this view rather than that view.
Yeah. Yes.
And you did mention with China and your father-in-law, and I want to mention again that President Joe Biden, actually, they have been allegedly not enforcing sanctions against Iran and China for these oil purchases, which is why Iran has actually made more money and China's oil purchases have gone up because it's been cheaper for them. So, when Joe Biden may be taking tough stances on Iran in different ways, he's nonetheless letting important enforcements go to the wayside. When it comes to Donald Trump and what Joy Behar said, if you listen to what she says, her primary focus in that statement is, but what about the Ukrainian aid, right? That's really what she's getting at here. And I think it kind of underlines the underlying, maybe not anti-Semitic feelings, but people don't care enough about Israel and the Jews because they see this as well, maybe the Jews might have deserved this. You can condemn what happened, but still have that underlying feeling. And I think that's shown through because her primary concern should have been like, you know what? We've given Ukraine $75 billion thus far. There is no real progress in the war in terms of seeing it end. Whereas Israel has a military force that is honestly incomparable, maybe except to the United States. And they're also not the type that's going to needlessly continue to fight. And when we talk about ways to combat that in the United States, I think it literally comes down to saying you have to pick a side. Either you side with Hamas, Palestine, put them all on the same side, because there is no looking at this two different ways. It's not like the Palestinian people, rose up against the Israeli army. It's not like that happened. You had a terrorist organization being harbored by Palestine attack Israel. So you have to just separate the two. There's only two sides to this. And if you're on the wrong side, I don't know how much convincing you need, because there are just too many people who say, oh, babies being beheaded, that's not true. I'm not going to believe it. And that's the same sentiment you heard when Mengele was doing these horrible experiments on Jews in the Holocaust. Well, that's not real. So there's just this level of misinformation and disinformation, as in people don't want to believe the truth.
Yeah, and not to get totally off on a tangent here, but you can't look at where we are in the world right now and not appreciate how different a position the entire world is in right now. And I believe probably based on the change of one individual at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The truth is, when Donald Trump was president, there were no new wars. The truth is, when Donald Trump was president, we had peace agreements signed. We had meetings to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. We had trade agreements that were historic with Mexico, with Canada, with China. The world felt very safe and very different. You had ISIS totally eliminated. We were in a great spot. We had secure borders. We were making things here in America for the first time in decades. We were producing our own oil here. We were getting it from our own ground. We weren't reliant on anyone else. And if you look at where we are right now, you look at the first thing Joe Biden did when he got into office, shutting down the Keystone XL pipeline. And you could argue very easily that one thing that he did, the first action as president of the United States, has led to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, has in a lot of ways led to the ability of a country like Iran to support a terrorist organization to go in and slaughter people in Israel. There are so many things that have happened. And the thing with the $6 billion that I find shocking, that $6 billion was frozen and it became unfrozen due to a hostage trade. We had hostages in America that, were from Iran, and Iran was holding 5 hostages that were Americans. So 5 for 5. I could see how somebody would say, okay, we'll let our 5 go on our end and we'll send your 5 back, right? Like, we'll swap it out. How dumb are we as America that they gave us 5 back, we gave them 5, and then we said, we'll also give you $6 billion. This kind of thinking, the way that we have shown ourselves on the world stage, Joe Biden as the president, weak, leaving Afghanistan, weak, allowing Vladimir Putin to do basically whatever he wants. It is so frightening. And everybody loved to say that Donald Trump was going to start World War III. Look how close we are to World War III right now with Joe Biden as president. And God bless us all, this guy has another year plus in office. Libby, this kind of stuff I really think about sometimes. And I'm like, are we going to make it as a world another year and 3 months with Joe Biden as president of the United States of America, as the leader of the free world? Because, God, it feels like things are just spiraling out of control, and it's really scary.
It is really scary. And I'm with you on the Keystone Pipeline, which cost a lot of American jobs and a lot of Canadian jobs as well. I think that that was absolutely a terrible idea. Joe Biden has systematically ruined a whole bunch of things in the United States, not the least of which is the border, which is totally decimated. I don't know. I don't know what else he could possibly do to continue the destruction of the U.S. other than continue with the same policies that he's got going. But it's terrifying to watch, and I wonder why they're sending him to Israel tomorrow. Why is Joe Biden going to a conflict zone like that? What could possibly
That's what I wondered. Who made this decision?
weird.
It feels really weird to me.
Me too.
That they're sending the person who's supposed to be arguably the most secure in the entire world, the president of the United States, into Israel? Are you kidding me?
Right. And some of the stuff I was reading this morning as well is part of what he's going to do is help negotiate the creation of a humanitarian corridor to get Americans out of Gaza. You have Egypt saying that they don't want to take Palestinians. You have Jordan saying that they unequivocally will not take Palestinians. You have Blinken over there spending 8 hours in meetings with people trying to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. And also what he's saying is like, we're getting humanitarian aid into Gaza and we're going to ensure that it doesn't go to Hamas. They can't ensure that it doesn't go to Hamas. I mean, you have, Israeli officials say that Gaza gets water pipes and Hamas turns them into rocket launchers. So what is really going on here? And why is the U.S. trying to, ameliorate the conditions in a war zone when the war is still ongoing at this point? What do they possibly think that they can gain here other than the facilitation of terrorists out of Palestinian territory?
I don't know what is going on. I mean, I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but I'm like,
I
guess if they're trying to get rid of Joe Biden, I guess send him over to Israel. I don't know.
He didn't go to Ukraine until a year after the war started.
Well, right. And this just happened. This is a week. They
didn't announce it either. When Biden went to Ukraine, it was like a surprise. It was like, oh my goodness, look at this. Joe Biden's in Ukraine. Now they're like on Monday, they're like, hey, Joe Biden's going to be in Israel, everybody. He's going to be there on Wednesday. This is what he's going to do while he's there. This is where he's going to be.
This is what he'll be wearing if you're looking for him.
Right. We're going to put him in a big neon onesie and parade him around Jerusalem. It's going to be excellent.
I mean, I don't know, Brianna. The whole thing seems really weird to me, too. I agree with you. I could not believe that I heard that he was going there. I mean, Blinken, okay, yeah, that's probably a job for him. But then to send Joe Biden there, and what is he going to do? He's going to negotiate something? He's going to actually figure something out? Are you kidding? This guy can't even tie his shoes together as far as many of us are concerned. Yet he's the one who's going to negotiate some sort of peace of some variety or some humanitarian corridor. Really? I don't think so. What do you think, Brianna? Is that going to work out?
No, and he's going to do what he's been doing, what other Democrats have been doing, which is they call for a ceasefire with Israel and Gaza. But then you have to sit back and wonder, we've heard a call for a ceasefire every single day since this started. I don't think I can recall a time when President Biden has forcefully come out and called for a ceasefire in Ukraine and Russia. And these are undoubtedly very different situations. Israel is being attacked by a legitimate United States State Department designated terrorist organization versus a war between Ukraine and Russia. So you have to sit back and wonder, why is President Biden so adamant that there has to and can be a ceasefire when Israel is fighting people who literally in their doctrine say, we want to get rid of Jews in Israel, but doesn't have that same appetite for ending a war in Ukraine? And I think that's on a lot of Americans' minds, and I think it's unfortunate to have a president of the United States go to Israel and call for a ceasefire, because it does give credence to those on the other side who say, look, Israel's not even listening to the leader of the free world. They're just going forth. Israel will not start this war. They will end this war. But make no mistake about it, what they're doing is self-defense. This is not even equivalent to what Hamas or even any other government would do if they step into what's happening.
Well, Godspeed to Joe Biden. I hope he's safe over there. I don't know why any of this is going on. I hope it's successful on every front, but it does make you wonder a little bit. And I think something a lot of us have been wondering about since all of this started, I think it's natural we start to then reflect on ourselves and our own country. And God, this is awful what we see going on over in Israel, but thank God it's not happening here. But then you think about the border, and that's immediately where my mind went. We've had 151 people on the terror watch list over the past year that we know of come in to the United States of America. Those are the ones that were caught. Libby, we don't know the ones that weren't caught. The past week, we've had special interest aliens apprehended at the border. These are 4 Iranians. 2 were on the terror watch list, apparently. But, this is a problem. This is something that I'm like, if you think about what could happen here in America, no, I don't think we would have a situation, thank God, like they've had over in Israel. But it does make you think if there were people who wanted to cause harm or make a statement of some variety, they could come up through our southern border very easily. Heck, they could come over from the northern border. There have also been 2 Lebanese nationals. We know that's the home to Hezbollah that were caught coming over the southern border over the past week or so. The Department of Homeland Security threat assessment posted last month that terrorists and criminal actors may exploit the elevated flow and increasingly complex security environment to enter the United States. You think so? Is this something you've thought about, Libby? Because I've thought about this quite a bit. These people could come straight in here and do whatever they want.
I think about this all the time, and I find it very troubling and disconcerting. And if we look at the history of other empires, like perhaps the Roman Empire, one of the things that really took them down was when all the Visigoths came in, started demanding things, and then basically just took over because there were more of them. We really have a habit in this country of not paying any attention to what happened before and what happened to other global powers prior to our own. I think it's absolutely terrifying that the southern border is wide open as it is. I think it's nearly like 5 million people have come in since Joe Biden took office. And before he took office, you had people who were wannabe illegal immigrants massing in South America wearing "Thank You, Joe Biden" t-shirts saying that Biden said that the border was open and they should all come. Then you had Mayorkas trying to walk it back saying, and I quote, "We're not saying don't come, we're saying don't come now." And then he denied it when Rand Paul was talking to him about it in the Senate. Absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane that Joe Biden thinks that he should lead the country by destroying our national borders. What kind of country has no borders? That's not a country. That's a random territory. That's like an unaffiliated little township. It's nothing. It's not a thing. You can't have a nation with no borders. And part of what's going on, too, is that we have no respect and love for America in this country. We have no respect and love for our own culture. We don't care. We constantly just see these videos of stupid TikTok girls saying, "Oh, these are the things that I really hate about America." And it's like, I love this country so much. I love all of us Americans. I think we're all nuts, and I think that's great. You know what I mean? One of the things I loved about Donald Trump was that he really represented in a lot of ways an American ethos on a global stage. Do you know what I mean? He was brash, he was a little arrogant, and he got stuff done. That's the American way. And I don't think we see any of that from the leadership in the White House or from the leadership in the Senate. And I fear for our House of Representatives right now.
I mean, and so many of us have been calling this out, Brianna. So many of us have been like, we need a border. We have to secure the border. We had the lowest border crossings under Donald Trump that we'd had in decades, maybe ever since we'd been keeping record of it. And then it just 180-degree change. Now people just know now's the time to come flow on in. A Customs and Border Patrol source recently told Breitbart that while most special interest aliens do not turn out to be terrorists, don't worry about it, most don't turn out to be terrorists, the massive amount of illegal crossings at the border makes it more difficult for officials to discern who's genuinely seeking a better life versus who may pose a danger. Do you think? It's just so obvious. I guess the goal keeping the border open has been, let's get all the voters in. Like, the Democrats know they're losing a lot of Americans because they're making our lives a lot worse, not better. They're not helping anyone achieve their version of the American dream. They're actually stifling and smothering out people's American dream at this point. So I guess the goal was like, just open the border, let all these people in, we'll do away with voter ID laws, and we'll just hope that these people vote Democrat in perpetuity, at least for the next several generations. And then we'll figure out like the next hack that we have to do in order to stay on top and stay in charge. But I think so many of us were like, we can't just have an open border because we don't know who's coming in. And now you see the disasters in New York City. Now you see why this is frightening for people, because we really don't know who came in and what they want to do in this country. And all it takes is one 151 on the terror watch list that were caught last year. One of them that slipped through the cracks comes in and they do something nefarious and Americans die. And that is all you need to know. That's why the border should have remained closed from the very beginning.
Well, look, if you went to a bakery and someone gave you a dozen cookies and said one of these is poison and will kill you, you not only would not eat the cookies, you wouldn't go back to the baker. And the analogy there is that the baker is the United States border policies. You should not be letting that in. And we talk about these special interest migrants, 75,000 special interest migrants between October of last year and August of this year were apprehended at the border. And what's more concerning is that just in September, the FBI was looking for a dozen Uzbek migrants who literally crossed the border illegally, were detailed as special interest migrants because they were helped in by an ISIS smuggler. And now the FBI is out searching for them because federal authorities released them. And it's hard because the federal authorities are operating under what the Biden and the Department of Homeland Security is telling them to do. But at what point will Democrats get on the same page and say, look, we don't agree with Republicans on how to solve the general crisis, but I think we can all agree if you are listed as a special interest alien, you do not get to come in and give your asylum claim, because a lot of people will say, well, if we have one or two fall through the cracks, big whoop. Even the ones who don't fall through the cracks, there are only 5 legal reasons to claim asylum, and most of the time people do not fit those asylum claims. And if you look at from 2009 to I believe it was 2017, the asylum claims, I mean, it increased more than 10-fold. And most of them are not even granted. They're automatically said, okay, these people have to leave. But how do they leave when they've been dispersed throughout the country? The FBI can't even find possible terrorists, and we're supposed to find just the average migrant who just didn't want to come here for a better job. So Republicans and Democrats really need to look at some of the things and say, look, if we're not going to agree on the border wall, can we at least agree that if you're on the special interest list, you can't come into the country? Like, just something small.
Yeah, just the basics would be good. Just to know that we have our agencies like the FBI and CIA actually working to protect Americans instead of, targeting a lot of conservatives, moms and dads who are now labeled as domestic terrorists for going to school board meetings, those sorts of things. Just the basics would be nice. You also have, let's not forget, the CIA letter for Hunter Biden, the Hunter Biden laptop. Everybody will probably recall that a bunch of former CIA agents all signed this letter calling the Hunter Biden laptop, saying that it had the, quote, classic earmarks of a Russian disinformation campaign. Leon Panetta, former CIA director, one of those individuals, he recently said, Libby, this is just like the most shocking thing I have ever heard, that he has no regrets about signing that. Don't forget what happened with that laptop. That laptop, people who voted for Joe Biden, 1 in 6 of them said, if I had known that laptop was real and not a Russian disinformation campaign, I wouldn't have voted for Joe Biden. It allowed Joe Biden to become president, because had those people not voted for him, he wouldn't be president right now. They knew in that moment that that laptop was real. They had no reason not to think that it was real. And yet they went forward. They put their signatures on this thing, all to sway an election. It is incredible to see. And Leon Panetta has absolutely no regrets, Libby. Wow.
Yeah, this is clearly a deep state guy who used the tools of that deep state to interfere in the election, and he's glad about it. That's probably what he thought his job was.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely horrifying, however. And it was, the thing I think that so many people forget is how deep these threads were in the Biden campaign. So the letter that was signed by those former intelligence officials, the 51 intelligence officials, the main guy who put together his pals to sign that letter was contacted by the Biden campaign when they were running for office. And the Biden campaign said, hey, don't you think this laptop story has the hallmarks of disinformation? And so the letter went out that the laptop had the hallmarks of disinformation. Politico then published it as though the letter said that it was Russian disinformation. So it was like a really bad game of telephone, and the American people are the ones who are, out of luck here. But yeah. It's horrifying to see how that's going down. And now you still have the House Oversight Committee is trying to get information about the classified documents as well, because the rot goes very deep in the Biden family. It's not Hunter Biden. It's It's not just Joe Biden. It's decades of what appears to be intensive graft and cheating the American people out of not only good governance, but our taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people say, well, yeah, he's got no regrets about it. And like, let's just move on. But you know what? Maybe it doesn't impact you directly to know that the Biden family has been absolutely just disgusting in every possible way, cheating the American people into voting for Joe Biden and like selling him as this person. Maybe the money that they've skimmed off the top and taken from China, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Russia, maybe you're like, that doesn't impact me every single day. Well, take a look around the world. Take a look, Brianna, at what's going on all over the world right now. And you tell me, did Joe Biden make decisions that he made as president because he thought they'd be good for America and good for, the overall world as a whole? Or did he make these decisions because he made some deal, deal that none of us will ever hear about with some of these major players around the world? And it does make you think when you're paying $4 a gallon instead of $1.87 a gallon for gas, whenever your grocery bill has gone up double or threefold since he's been in office. What if these things do impact your everyday life? These do have consequences for us here at home and around the world. And I think that is the big thing that people need to start connecting. It's not just about the fact that, oh yeah, it's terrible if the Biden family took all this money. It has implications that run very deep for all of us here in America and around the world.
Right. And, national security, for instance, is a huge issue. And you think to the people who signed on to this letter, James Clapper, John Brennan, and a bunch of others just last month, they were actually appointed by the Department of Homeland Security to an expert. They're experts, on national security. And that makes me feel quite unsafe to know that the men who literally believe that a laptop that Hunter later admits was his, that you had analysts tell the Daily Caller right off the bat, yeah, this is real, wasn't real. And now we're supposed to put our national security in their hands. And, Libby was just talking, Michael Morrell, he was the former CIA deputy director. He testified before Congress and he said that then campaign advisor Antony Blinken triggered the creation of the letter. Antony Blinken's then appointed Secretary of State. And you have to wonder, was this a pay for play scheme? Like, was his role, okay, if you can get the best letter out there and help me win, I will appoint you to a higher position. And that's concerning. And then you look further into Michael Morrell's testimony, and I'll never forget, he said his two goals was one, yeah, there was a little bit of concern about Russian disinformation, but two, I wanted Joe Biden to win. If that's not all you need to hear to know that this was a politically motivated move, not one based on so-called Russian disinformation, and you're still okay with what the Biden administration has done, how he's used these people further in his administration, you either just don't care and you hate Republicans or you don't pay enough attention.
Maybe a little bit of both. Just before we go today, I want to say a big congratulations to Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan was appointed by Attitude Magazine. This is a British publication as Woman of the Year. So congrats to Dylan. Of course, Dylan is a man who considers himself to be a woman. One Woman of the Year. Here's part of the speech that Dylan gave, Libby, real quick. Some people don't see me as a woman at all, which is why receiving this honor from a queer publication like Attitude means so much more to me. Mulvaney said, no matter how hard I try or what I wear or what I say or what surgeries I get, I will never reach an acceptable version of womanhood by those hateful people's standards. But as long as I have the queer community that sees me for my truth, I'm going to be okay. Hateful people's standards. It's not that any of us are hateful. It's not that you can tell me whatever you want to be. You want to be a rhinoceros. You want to be a circus clown. I really don't care. But whenever we start giving Woman of the Year awards to a man, I think some of us just look at it and we're like, this is so ridiculous. We've reached this level now. We're like, okay. And the sky is green and yellow. Like, it's not blue anymore. It's just whatever you want to say about anything, whatever you want to do, Libby. That's apparently what's happening here. Congrats to Dylan, though, I guess.
Yeah, I don't have any kind words for Mr. Mulvaney on the advent of his award from one of the top-selling gay men's magazines in the world. Yeah, he went over there. He was very happy about winning his award. He trotted about in a gown. He covered up his 5 o'clock shadow that the laser hair removal treatment has not successfully done for him. Yeah, I find it so shockingly stupid that this is the reality we are living in. And it is also, to me personally, like just very obnoxious that the language has been changed to such an extent that woman now means whatever you vaguely think it means on any given day. Mulvaney is, yeah, no matter what he does, no matter what surgeries he performs, no matter what he wears, no matter how high he sings his notes in whatever Broadway show he's surely going to star in next, he is definitely not woman enough for me. And that is because he is absolutely not even a little bit female.
Yeah, he's a man.
He's just a man.
Yeah, Brianna, is anybody drinking Bud Light again? You know, remember, that's how we all got to know Dylan. The Bud Light scandal. I know that their sales over at Anheuser-Busch really suffered. Everything kind of went bad and south for them. Is anybody drinking it? I haven't seen many people picking up a Bud Light lately still.
Neither have I. I mean, I know people quite literally will avoid drinking it if they're given one just because they don't want to be associated with the type of culture that condones this behavior. And by condone, I mean try to convince half of the world that they're nuts. And when we talk about Dylan Mulvaney, and I think it begs the question, not what is a woman? Because we know biologically what a woman is, but what does it mean to be a woman? And when you nominate someone like Dylan, a man, as Woman of the Year, it sends a message that being a woman is simply vanity, that you just put makeup on and do your hair and you're a woman. And it's insulting to women like us who know that there is so much more to be a woman than just, you know, looking pretty and feeling good about yourself. And it sends a message to the young girls out there that if you just wear enough makeup and you do enough things, then you are woman enough, just like every other man who thinks they're a woman. But there's more that these men will never be able to understand, and they'll never live the lives we've lived. And I really hope that a fourth wave of feminism comes around and reminds people of that.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. Most people know what a woman is unless you're trying to become a Supreme Court justice, and then you really can't answer a question like that. So don't ask. Don't even bother asking. Libby and Brianna, thank you both for joining us here today on Ladies Tea at The Right View. To everybody at home, as always, thank you for being with us. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow, and we'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View. Nothing is worse than being on a phone call that drops. Nothing is worse than trying to text someone and you can't reach them because your phone is out of service range. And nothing is worse than supporting these major corporations and companies who don't support us. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless network. They use every cell tower out there available to all networks so that they have the greatest 4G and 5G coverage nationwide, and they support the causes that are important to us as conservatives. If you go today to patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump and use the promo code Trump, you will get free activation today. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump. The promo code is Trump for free activation so that you can get a great cell plan and feel good about doing it. So I'm like a lot of people. I love to wear an Apple Watch, but I hate how it looks. And I scoured the internet to search for the best looking Apple Watch cases I could find, and I found it. goldandcherry.com. They have absolutely beautiful watches, as you can see here. Everything is waterproof. Everything looks good with different outfits. You can get sporty, you can get fancy, but they are great quality, made out of Delaware in the United States of America. And they have been kind enough to give me a promo code that I can share with you if you want to get your hands on one of these as well. It's Lara T, L-A-R-A-T is the promo code to get yourself a discount at goldandcherry.com. And not only do they make Apple Watch cases, they also make great products for iPads and iPhones, keyboards, your desktop, everything you could possibly need. goldandcherry.com. Use promo code LARAT so you can get yourself one of these today too. At The Right View, we're very proud of the fact that we are independent. We get to say everything that we think and everything that we feel. We have no woke companies guiding us or telling us what we can and cannot say. We are always going to shoot you straight and give you the facts as we know them. And that's why it's important to support independent outlets like The Right View. My name is Lara Trump, and I think Mike Lindell is a patriot. He is someone who loves this country, is willing to fight for this country. I love MyPillow because not only are MyPillows made in the USA by American workers, but they're great products, and they're so great that not only do I use them in my own bed at night, my children actually requested. My daughter the other day went to the closet and pulled out a MyPillow and said, "This is the pillow that I want to sleep with." And I gotta tell you, she loves it and will have nothing to do with any other pillow. So it's a big hit around our house. My dogs also happen to sleep on MyPillow dog beds. So all around the Trump household, we're big fans. If you go to mypillow.com today and use promo code Trump, again, promo code Trump, you will not only save money, but you will help us continue this show and other shows like it and help us continue the fight for the future of America. Inflation has impacted all of our lives. I don't think anyone can go to the gas pump or the grocery store without noticing that it is a major factor. And unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. It doesn't seem like it's going down in the way that we would like it to. And one way to protect your money is by investing in precious metals, gold and silver. That's always been a great way to make sure that you keep your money and you keep it safe. When you go to bh-pm.com, use promo code Trump. That way, if you decide you want to invest in gold and silver, you'll save yourself a little bit of money. We live in a time that's very interesting. A lot of us out there feel like a lot of our rights are slipping away. And if you're like I am and you want to have the right to choose whether or not to have a vaccine, how to live your life freely, and you're looking for a great doctor, I've heard amazing things about Dr. Sherwood. He's somebody who you should really check out and check into, and it'll help support this program and keep us going. So go to sherwood.tv and use promo code Trump. Again, sherwood.tv and use promo code Trump. You can save yourself some money and help us keep our program going.